style.
What was the... Oh, yeah, of course it was Twin Peaks where they do the backwards talk.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've seen that in other stuff, though, too.
Wow.
Oh, Chloe posted on... what was it? The Flintstones thing. Did you see the Flintstones clip?
No, with Kyle MacLachlan, though?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I have seen that
You've
movie.
seen the movie?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, I believe.
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
I always get confused because there's like actually two Flintstone movies with like completely different casts. But there's a scene. Yeah, it's gone. There's a scene where it's like a fourth wall break where Kyle MacLachlan. I'm not sure if you've seen it on YouTube, but Kyle MacLachlan just turns and like looks and does like an eyebrow raise at the camera.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's very cringy.
Cooper.
Yeah. So you saw The Lost World.
Come on,
like, how'd you come up on The Lost World?
It was on TV.
Okay.
Dad was watching it. I didn't know what movie it was.
Was it like AMC or something?
Yeah. And I saw a very young Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
He didn't seem very sleazy. He looked well rested.
I was just reading about how on the Swingers podcast that like Spielberg saw Vince Vaughn in Swingers and was like, "Who is that guy?
Who's that beautiful baby?"
And then put him in there. And then Julianne
Gretzky,
Moore.
fuck Gretzky. I'm gonna make his head bleed.
Do you like Swingers?
Yeah. I just quoted it 3 times.
Well, yeah. They were talking about how they had.
You're gonna pull a Fredo, get all the ladies. You beautiful son of a bitch.
They had.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, they had apparently Vince Vaughn come over to like make Gretzky's head bleed in that game because they like couldn't do it through special effects or something. He's really good at NHL '93.
Oh yeah. I bet I could beat him. I was on a. It was years that I went without losing any year of NHL. Mm-hmm. I was playing Mad Jude a lot for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I would always beat Sam and whomever else, Evan. But I'd be reluctant to say that I always beat Alex as a kid, but we played it from 95, and I played it up until the Patrice Bergeron cover. So that was 2018. But there was like one night in a Toronto bar, by the Drake Hotel, where you could. It was just Winter Goes On, and it was like NHL '95 on Sega.
Oh wow!
And I on a projector, and
was there a delay then?
No,
yeah, okay,
it was a huge screen.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was kind of drunk, but I won 6 games in a row, and in the last 4 I didn't allow a goal, and that was against anyone in the bar. And I won drinks for the table.
Oh, so you won like the whole thing?
Well, it wasn't like an organized tournament. It was just something you could go and do.
Yeah.
And it's in a bar downtown Toronto. At like, midnight, 1 a.m.
Do you think that...
It was fucking sweet. But I was like, oh, I'll never lose again. And then got to New Generation, like PS4, and was, my friend Josh from Australia, who...
Did he play it?
Well, he was new to hockey and being a fan and chose the Leafs because he likes pain. But it was crazy because I taught, like, he started learning, and then I was just losing all the time to him. I didn't get it.
So he got better than you did?
No, I wasn't as good on PS4 or in Alberta. So I retired. Plus, those games suck.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and it's like they'll show it for the game showcase, like, oh, new generation of Madden, and it's like it wouldn't matter if it was on PS6
Play
or
outdoors.
Anything. They need to just update the animations are still terrible.
Yeah,
they're still
all the
Xbox
same.
360 era.
It goes back to like 2008 where they've recycled a lot of the animations and.
Didn't they get in trouble for like plagiarism or something?
Oh, it's just that they suck and they're so lazy and.
Yeah.
There's no real competition. It's funny, like you wanted
was
to talk
thinking they
about
should
the
do
Lost
Backyard.
World, but this is before my ADHD medication has even started working. So let's talk about Lost World. All right, well, first 20 minutes of me talking about my history playing hockey video games and
Did you? How far? At what point did you jump in on the Lost World? Did you see?
well, yeah, I saw the young Vince Vaughn. I saw the bad guy from Death Wish 2.
That must be Pete Postlethwaite.
I don't think so.
Is it the bald hunter?
No, he had long hair and glasses and a big bushy beard. A great big bushy beard.
Wow, I'm trying to think.
And I looked him up because he was familiar in the this fucking guy sort of way. But yeah, he was the bad guy in Death Wish 2, which
We'll
is
have to look that up.
those movies aren't good.
What did he do in this movie? Long hair glasses.
He was a scientist.
Oh shoot! Yeah, the other paleontologist. Did you see his death scene?
No, I like I was saying, I only saw like about 15 minutes of the middle of it and thought, oh shit, this movie's like pretty good.
Yeah,
I was like, this movie's better than I thought. There's Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
And there's
exceptionally well cast movie.
Well, there's like a bunch of like really recognizable faces.
Vince Vaughn, Julianne Moore, Jeff Goldblum.
Julianne Moore, seeing her, a young makes me want to watch Safe.
That was her second role, and
That's
Spielberg,
crazy.
once again, like, same movie, he picks Vince Vaughn because of his audition tape in Swingers or something. He's like, oh, I like that guy. He picks Julianne Moore because of her, like, 1 5-minute scene in The Fugitive.
Oh, I didn't even know she was in The Fugitive.
Where she takes Harrison Ford's badge and recognizes he's not a janitor, and she's like, "That's enough for me," and then takes that.
I thought you were gonna say Steven Spielberg saw her for 5 minutes in a
in real life
in a Hollywood pharmacy, screaming at the people who work there. Fuck you!
What decency!
How dare you!
Yeah. Do you think her acting is good in that movie?
Oh my goodness, she is perfect. She is such an incredible actress. Like, she looks so distinct, but she never looks like herself. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see Julianne Moore. I see Amber Waves, or I see her character in It's Safe, or oh my god, that movie's great. God, she was in so much.
Did you ever see Far From Heaven?
I've seen the original,
because
it's like Rainier Fassbinder's favorite movie. Is it Far From Heaven? That was the remake, right, of Douglas Sirk?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just the Douglas Sirk stuff with, like, I want to say Rock Hudson feeding a deer in the backyard with a shirt off when it was just like, isn't he wonderful? And they look out in the yard and he's feeding a baby deer. I think I'm maybe thinking of the parody of it on The Simpsons with Flanders, but...
My only memory of, like, Far From Heaven, because I never saw it, but it was, like, those Blockbuster and Jumbo Video magazine era, and this was on the cover, so there were movies where it's like, this is the big movie of the month, kind of thing, and Far From Heaven was on the cover, and was like... Oh, well, this is a big movie I haven't heard of then. And then looking at it, it's like, oh, it probably has good production design. Like, those early 2000s movies, they seem to put a lot of effort into, like, the production design.
Well, wasn't that a Todd Haynes film?
I was thinking it was Todd Haynes.
So then there's no surprise that it's so lush. And,
people say that about, Wonderstruck?
He's like a classy... Todd Solondz.
I always remember, though, AV Club criticizing... I get confused between Todd Haynes. Todd Haynes did Dark Waters, didn't he?
Yeah, and you guys just watched that.
And he was like, it's about time that Todd Haynes finally makes a movie that anybody could have made. It's just as, like, a disappointment for...
Yeah, that was disappointing. Yeah. Everyone was just like... And I really thought this movie about DuPont poisoning everyone was going to be a lot more like Velvet Goldmine, but...
And a lot less like something.
Aaron Brockovich.
Chloe, I watched this movie with Chloe starring Victor Garber. I don't remember what it was, but he's like in the background. Oh, he's in Sicario.
I haven't seen it.
And I didn't know that he was in, but Chloe's like, oh, I hate Victor Garber.
Why does she know it?
Ever since he, like, hit on Elle Woods. And I'm like, what else? Like, the only time he plays a good guy is when he was the Canadian ambassador in Argo. But he, like, designed...
that guy.
He designed the Titanic. He's
that guy looks like he's, oh, that's kind of mean. But he's...
he's an
he has so
understand.
much face. He has so much face.
Mm-hmm.
He it's almost like he's
Mom
like a burn
that.
victim with a skin graft, and his like face is just like a little bit more pronounced.
Wow,
that's like a really bad thing to say.
That's very. I'm surprised you conjured that image, because when.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, before my medication works, like, my brain's not in a great place, and it's like, well, you should talk about horrible stuff. Yeah, good thinking, brain.
Yeah,
that was just for daddy.
A horror podcast.
Well, then we can just talk about my dreams or my day-to-day mental health. Or I was talking to Dad yesterday, and he, like, I'd mentioned a few things, and he was like, geez, you've had a bunch of weird stuff happen to you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, because I guess...
yeah, you weren't there.
Well, no, he was there for some of the stuff. I mean, I'm not always here.
Not as a criticism.
No,
because
but
you were, like,
no, but
physically away.
No, but he wasn't being specific, because we were talking about one of, I think it's Belinda's husband has viral meningitis, and I was like, oh yeah, know how that goes, and then started talking about how getting a spinal tap was pain beyond anything I could have imagined.
I remember you got that.
Yeah, I mean. I had meningitis. I was in bed for about a month. I lost about 30 pounds of muscle from my chest and arms, and that was like 30 pounds in like a month and a half. I couldn't sit up for a while without being sick, and my
what's your progression from then to now?
My cinema professor thought I was faking it. Somehow.
Typical cinema professor.
Yeah, that I was like...
Believes everything's in fiction.
Yeah, I was like, you've never met an actor who's this good if I am acting. Like, I'm dying. Like, I'm...
You are a good actor, though.
No, I'm not.
I thought you were pretty good. I'm a pretty good actor, too. I once didn't even recognize myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, who is... Oh, that's me! Like, it was just like a split second.
When you were watching your performance in...
West Side Story.
Oh, yeah. In the all men
adaptation.
The all boys performance of West Side Story, you were the Maria. But no, like, this came up yesterday when talking about meningitis, and then I mentioned, well, we're coming up on about a year since I had Bell's palsy when half my face froze.
That was a year ago? Feels like
it was like September-ish.
6 months ago. It
was around September, so we're coming up on a year. Not to mention the attempted murder of like 3 times the lethal dose of MDMA, and then having an overdose in my system for like a month plus.
How'd you survive that if
I
it
don't
was
know.
3 times the lethal dose, though?
I don't know. That's why it was in medical journals, because it was unprecedented.
When did the police or the hospital get involved? Like
a month after, when I went in. Because I was like, I can handle myself, you know. I've always been good with my, you know, sense of self and control, and like if I get very drunk, I've never had to be carried home. I'm never a liability. Same if like with mushrooms or something like that. I haven't done too many things, just like mushrooms, weed, and my own prescription drugs. But like, so it was hubris in a way because I thought I was in control and missed a couple days of work and excuse me, hiccups. But then it wasn't. I don't remember.
You don't say.
I lost my memory essentially. Like, this happened in the late December 2 years ago, and it was November to March that I lost, and so I think I finally went to the hospital at the urging of my boss, and they did blood work and all this sort of stuff, and they said like it was about a month. It was about 5 weeks since it happened, and I still had an overdose in my system. And I had worked through the Christmas season at the 5-star hotel on front desk, with an MDMA overdose, and no one noticed. None of the guests noticed.
Well, yeah.
I have no memory. It was like Memento. So that's its own thing, right? Plus meningitis, plus
So like
everything else.
Because my understanding of like how it went down, and I don't really think I've ever asked you directly, but it was like you were at a bar, essentially. Which I imagine, I don't know if you've ever been in the Lieutenant's Pump, but that's like, I imagine it looking like that.
It was like a more
dingy
like
bar.
It was a crappy bar that wanted to be a club.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just like a Banff. Yeah, it was like 2 a.m.
You think Banff could do better?
Oh my god, yeah. It's like literal. It's an Indian burial ground, like for real. So I could tell you the story if you want to hear it.
Well, the question I was wondering was like my basic understanding of it was like that you get like somebody slips something in your drink, you drink it, then you feel super weird and go home, or you get cared, you get put in a cab, or like
it was I have flashbacks and dreams about it a lot, so it's been suggested that perhaps it is lost memories and that it might be accurate. It's just my subconscious. I don't know. But so drinking whiskey sours is the night of Christmas party. And
how close to Christmas is it?
It was December 19th.
Wow. That's like fourth week of Advent.
Yeah,
Not
and
that
it
that
was
matters, but
yeah, those are my
especially holy.
This is why I don't go to church anymore, because that fourth candle involves this much MDMA.
Back too many memories.
Anyways,
that's why
I tried it like a couple times before with Taylor in safe circumstances, and it made me just like, I loved The Cure already, and then hearing Disintegration while that's playing was just unreal. But I would never do it again. No, I would never do it again because of what happened. So I liked whiskey sours. I haven't had any since this happened. And I also don't eat ice cubes anymore.
Do you know who did it?
No, it was a stranger. It was a woman, and which was even more confusing because why?
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and well, it does. It does happen often. It does happen often. It's just like a lot of people that I spoke to after said like, oh yeah, I know that this has happened to so and so or this, and it was from mostly guys. Girls, it happens to everybody, but especially in Banff. So
why do you think? Because people.
Well,
travel
I don't know,
rich?
but it was she was probably in town from like Calgary or Edmonton. But yeah, I was at the bar, I was talking to her, and it was a cube, like it was a big block of it that was like estimated by the RCMP about. It was like $200 worth of drugs plus.
So did it like?
So I ate it thinking it was an ice cube, because I eat my ice cubes. It was like an ice cube.
An ice cube?
Yeah, of MDMA,
Wow.
and I thought it was the end of the night, and I eat my ice cubes from my mixed drinks. I used to. I don't do that anymore.
Because of this?
Yes, and I bit into it, and it was like a Jolly Rancher, and then I thought it was gonna choke on it, so I chewed it through, and I just thought maybe it was just like whiskey sour. And like
at the time, by the way,
yeah, I was with coworkers. They weren't like close friends. They weren't keeping an eye on me. Yeah. But it felt like in Breaking Bad, how they stylized like the meth experience where everything is like super intense. Yeah, when the light is like everywhere. Sounds were so loud. I thought it was meth. Like I was in winter and walking on the icy sidewalk was deafening. It was like the loudest thing. I could not stop grinding my teeth. I realized something was wrong fairly quick. Like the bar was still open. I went to the bouncer and said, I need help. Something bad has happened to me. And I was standing outside. I exited the bar when I said that, and he said, I can only help you if you're in here. So he didn't like that I took a big cartoonish step over the threshold and then said, I need help. And then he just called me a cab. He didn't take it seriously because I, couldn't act in accordance. And I guess, MDMA kind of makes your everything emphasized. So no. And so then I made it back to the hotel, instead of going to my residence where I lived by myself. I knew better at the time that my good friend Sam, who's the night manager, was working. So I went to the back office and just sat on the floor, and his voice
feeling?
and his face sometimes give me flashbacks, which I don't think I've ever told him directly because he's so shy that I would be worried he would say even less if I told him that his voice gave me flashbacks. I guess, I was told that I was saying, who would do this to me? And then everything else was like effusive compliments to everyone around me. Like, you're doing a great job. I'm so sorry. Like, oh my God, you're such a good friend. And people just thought I was like, maybe a little drunk. Sam knew something was wrong. Because like
He's your friend?
he's my good friend, and he could see something was wrong. And I stayed up all night, and I had a couple people, Jessica Cole, Marissa Shigehiro, and Larissa Barnowski, friends at the time, kept me company that night, and I've dreamt about those conversations a lot. And I also had a long phone call with Alex on the phone where
That night?
yeah, at like 5 in the morning, because I was, scared. I kept seeing the same. Was having like crazy hallucinations. There was a giant, like, just think of like the mountain from Game of Thrones, standing in every door frame. So there was no exit for me. He was covered in like gold robes and had a porcelain looking like clean white mask, face cover that was
Almost
that
like
was
Eyes
like
Wide Shut or
it
something.
was kind of like a frown, but it had the eye holes, like fairly large eye holes, and his face was so dirty beneath the mask, and I could see he was smiling at me. And Alex was like, go touch him, go interact with him. And I told Alex, like, I was like, we have an understanding. And then I think that creeped him out. And I called in to work, and my boss, Alec Sweeney, he's an excellent man. He told me to take the time, and he had faith in me that I was okay, because I could always outdrink everyone. And
How did you know it was MDMA?
I didn't. I didn't know what had happened. I just thought I thought it was meth. I thought it was drugs, like other drugs. I didn't know it was MDMA until I went and had blood work done a month later, and then they got the RCMP involved.
Who told you? Did you just decide to go to the hospital for yourself?
Yeah, because I was off for about a week, and my coworkers would say stuff like, "Oh, what'd you do for this guest?" They wrote a letter, or they called down and said how great of a job you did, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't remember. They would. I wasn't myself. I was like an empty vessel, basically.
When's the first time you like actually slept after that happened?
I don't know. I watched White Chicks.
Still need to see that.
That
movie.
next day, and that was like my friend Sarah Cohandle it was her favorite movie, and
Really?
she told me to watch it, and it was a good idea. I also watched the short miniseries Wormwood.
Oh, I remember you
Because
saying
it was
that's
Errol
like a
Morris.
bad idea.
That was a really bad idea. As well as Eric Andre was a horrible idea. I watched 3 episodes of Eric Andre, thinking like, this is funny. I enjoy this show, and
then
that was it was incredibly difficult, the nightmares I was having.
Because I remember listening to Jim Gaffigan. Somebody put it on the background when I was the first time I was ever high, and I'm like, what? And it's like you try and debate something with you, like, is this good for me? Is this bad? Am I having a good time?
It wasn't like exactly high, as I was poisoned, and my brain chemistry changed. Like I saw a neurologist that I see in Toronto on occasion, Dr. Picard, because I've had so many concussions.
What made you feel bad about while
Eric Andre? Like, it was horrifying. Like, I was having bad dreams and hallucinations because it was something that I otherwise would enjoy, but it was just too intense, and the imagery was too. Yeah, it wasn't. It was tough to I do find it funny, but it was just so visceral that it made my brain panic. And this is kind of how I learned I had PTSD, because I would be so scared all of a sudden and so lost and confused, and I wouldn't know who I was. I have depersonalization issues. So, like, do you remember a couple weeks ago, I just, like, stood up in the middle of dinner and then said, I need to go outside. I was having one I was having one there where I couldn't figure out what was going on, and I didn't want to ask if I was dreaming at
Feels
dinner.
like we haven't had dinner together, like sitting down. Like it could have been
because
last
you've been
week.
working,
Well,
and
but it feels like it could have been
Mom's been
months
hiding,
ago.
and
Yeah.
but I have them and then just try to keep it to myself because it's scary for other people, and Mom doesn't necessarily want to hear about it. But like, like first person view in a video game. Like, you see your hands, and you see that they're your hands. You recognize you have control. That's what it is. That's what it's horrifying. It's like being how it felt at the time, and thankfully the feeling's gone away, was that I suddenly woke up in a new body when I was like I could hear myself speak, and I knew roughly what I was supposed to do, where I was supposed to be, who these people were, but I had no connection. It was just so perfunctory, and that I'd make jokes and people would find them funny, but I just felt like I had no soul.
Have you seen? You haven't seen the show Evil at all, have you? Because there's like a whole plot line where they do drugs and they like not exactly what you're describing, obviously, but they talk about like there's a great deal of dream logic. There's at hands. You cannot read something when you're dreaming. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So if you try and read this,
it makes a gigantic difference, though. Yeah. As far as like, I didn't consent to that trip. That's the worst part, because like, I mean, it's different it's like if you want to experience what it's like to be homeless. You can go out and sleep on a bench, but you can go home anytime. Yeah. Like, you have a home.
As soon as things get dodgy.
Right. Like, it's not. That's how I would experience. That's how I would compare it, because I didn't have any control. I didn't have any exit. I couldn't do anything. I still have like crazy dreams. I have flashbacks. Memories are coming back, and that's why I'm able to remember.
Is this closing in on 3 years?
I'm trying to remember if it's been 2.
It's been.
Yeah, it was coming up on 3 years in this December. And I had celebrated it like a reverse birthday, is what I had called it. I had one in Banff, and then that was a bad idea, because
like a
on the anniversary of an incredible trauma, it's not a good idea to call a bunch of attention to it. Yeah. And then you put all this pressure on yourself. And then I, similarly to that my performance at Rachel's wedding, I got too drunk, had a panic attack. And
Rachel
that night,
getting married.
And then I had an ambulance called on me because people were worried, because I just was out of control. And, I was going to say my neurologist, Dr. Picard, in Toronto, I used one of my vacation days in Toronto and spent the whole day at the neurologist, tests. And
this was part of the year later thing?
Yeah, this was the summer after. And essentially, there was so much that looking at, scans or whatever, this is like very informal explanation. She said it was like looking at a different brain that has undergone the same trauma. It's almost like my brain chemistry, like something like it's a different brain, and that it would have, be a good explanation for why I don't feel at home in my body all the time, or why I can't get my mind straight sometimes, like, where I'll just start spiraling and then have a panic attack, and then I just have to go shut down. I just have to go like do sensory deprivation, essentially, just get in bed, put a pillow over my face, and just try to breathe it through.
Did they ever, like, catch the person?
No.
Would you recognize them?
No. Hoodoos shut down shortly after. It was
the bar that
yeah.
you ran.
It was
What was it called?
Hoodoos, which was the name of
That's
this cool rock monument in the area of the hoodoo.
Isn't it also a type
things.
of voodoo?
No. Hoodoo. What do you want to call them? Like, they're like
not like a band,
inexplicable like towers, rock towers, and
like
native community. No, because those are man-made.
Oh.
These are naturally occurring, and the legend was that they watch over the children and the youth in the area. Ironically, this was the worst bar in all of Banff. The RCMP,
burial.
Yeah, and the RCMP already wanted to shut it down, and they just revoked their permits because they would erase their surveillance footage every week, every 5 days or so, and so I would have had to have reported it then. So because of that, because it was a month after that I was talking to the detective, I reported as information.
Not as the detective.
His name is Detective DeLay, I want to say. And there was and then I spoke to his partner because I got punched in the face like a month later. My first time out, a guy was drunk and was hitting on my friend who. And I just told him, like, she's not enjoying it, and she's coming home with us, and he just punched me in the face, and then everyone grabbed me thinking I started a fight, because I was volatile at the time, like, I would have crazy mood swings, and,
that's my biggest fear.
I was unpredictable.
That I would be, like, punched, and then people would hold me back, thinking because it's, like, your friends or people.
I panicked because I've had 5 concussions, so if I get one more...
You're basically dead.
Yeah, it's like almost. I've had close to probably irreparable damage. Like this is what I was saying with Dad. Like meningitis, 5 concussions, the overdose, Bell's palsy, carpal tunnel.
You ever think about having kids?
Everything, adopting.
Yeah.
So yeah, they reported it to the police. It had to go as information rather than than a case, than an information rather than an investigation, and spoke to them, and they were, I think about some of the things they said all the time because it was very complimentary, and they're like, "Holy shit!" So you not only had, 3 times that MDMA or an overdose in your system, what we previously believed to be a fatal overdose in your system. And you worked at the Christmas season at like the busiest hotel in Canada. No, I should say busiest, but like, one of the like
top.
Yeah, it's the coolest
like
hotel.
Carlton.
Yeah, but better. It's like 5-star internationally renowned Banff Springs hotel, and you're like, you worked at Christmas, front desk, with an overdose in your system. And you're alive, and you did well at work, and they were like, "That's incredible." The doctors at are fairly limited in Banff. I can't even remember what the name of the clinics are, but it went from one doctor who spoke to his mentor, and then they spoke to me, and then I spoke to a doctor who is. And a writer for a medical journal, and so I'm in medical journals. Like they don't use names,
Patient A.
Yeah, and so previously you can't to say fatal or overdose, lethal amounts of MDMA is a bit misleading because it leads to complications like heart attacks or your heart shuts down, your brain shuts down, rather than the drug itself. So that's why a lot of, I've had, actually, at a few parties when people have, heard the story. Again, in Banff, it's a shitty place. But yeah,
How long did you live out there?
3 years. And I catch myself, I say, oh, man, I loved living out there. And then I remember what happened, and I was like, so I have this, complete disconnect. And I guess you know, it makes sense because a lot of times I'll have a moment, like this is most days, where I'll have to stop and think, am I in Amherst? Am I in Toronto? Am I in Banff? Am I in Canmore? Like all the places I've lived, I have to figure out where I am. You know, or if
How long did you live north of northern Ontario with?
It wasn't northern, it's western, I guess you could say, because it's London.
It
was like more than a year.
Time, by the way, or
No, I met her about a year after I got drugged. Yeah, and she was incredible. And so
shout out to Meg.
Yeah, it's very supportive, very cool.
So this would have been
very cute.
How long was this after your previous girl? What was her name?
Nas?
Yeah.
That was in Toronto.
Yeah, I know.
I was with her for 5 years, and then...
How long? So between...
2 years.
So 2 years after Nas, 1 year before Meg?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. And now there's Maria, and she's amazing.
Oh, nice.
So, like, she's in... Yes, yeah. She's in Denmark.
I keep forgetting that I met Meg twice.
Yeah, you know, she really liked you. Mm-hmm. Well, like, Maria lives in Denmark.
Maria lives in... Me, though, even though we'd never
You were Nas's favorite. But, I hope she's doing well. She lives in New York. Meg's doing well in London.
Is Nas married?
No, I don't think so. I would doubt it. But she is... I just... hope she's happy. As if
everyone who's ever dated me.
Well, I had a nightmare the other night where Maria met Taylor and Brian and threw a concert at our old high school surprise party for me, and I panic in front of crowds. I don't really do so super well with that anymore, and I dreamed that they were having a concert, and I tried to hide. And then I learned that Maria had wanted to meet all my exes, so she invited them. And so when I was trying to hide, I kept running into them. And then I went to the mall, which in Kingston, not too far away, in Dream Logic, right across the street. Mm-hmm. And you and Dad found me. Dad had his guitar walking around the mall playing his guitar. And you guys made me come back. And on the way in, you could hear Brian Wilson, my friend, not Beach Boy, soloing, and my friend Taylor, who's supposed to be in the band, just laughing. Mm-hmm. I was like, he just sounds like he's laughing instead of singing.
Does Taylor play the keyboard, or am I?
I wish. He plays guitar on occasion. Plays enough just to be that guy at parties. You know, when it was like, I love this song. Oh,
bring him
music's
to a campfire.
Yeah, the music's turning down. What's going on? Oh, some guy with weird tattoos is gonna be playing.
Taylor has tattoos?
Oh yeah, he's got a bunch of trees on his forearms and stuff. I always tease him. I love that guy. And I told Brian. Well, I told all of them about the dream.
You're nervous about, like, it's a dream about you being nervous and basically called upon to speak. Yet you've been a best man or MC at like a wedding, and I haven't specifically for those reasons.
Pre-crisis.
Sure.
I was the MC at Rob's wedding. And was sick to my stomach. I was in my own play, in the first one, and I tried to cut out all my lines as much as I could. And I was so nervous. Yeah, Father Alan Finger.
I was thinking about that.
I'm just not.
I barely recall it, but like the dinner we had before you.
Mom mentioned that. I don't remember it at all, and she said I kept trying to leave and was so nervous.
I remember being there, but it's like, in your situation, I can't believe like that. Like having to be there before, that'd be nuts.
Yeah, when I'd written it and produced it, I was the director and I was in it, and I did the posters and stuff.
Like the anxiety that I had once before I had to go on and perform. This is in theater class. I was like I've never felt more anxious in a bad way than before that.
12 drama class. We had to do the importance of being earnest for other classes.
That. Yeah.
And I was Algernon for some reason. It was a bunch of us. Mm-hmm. Like, we each did a scene. Mm-hmm. And mine was the opening scene yelling at the butler about cucumber sandwiches. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't do an English accent. And so... I guess to warn the audience about it, again, they're like younger kids, the other classes. She says, just bear with us in this one. Algernon's gonna be Scottish. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I have to go right on after that introduction of like, cucumber sandwich. Yes, that didn't help. I haven't done any public speaking or anything since the drugging. I was supposed to get an award. Well, actually, this is like 2-3 times in Banff after, where I was supposed to get an award at the hotel, and I just skipped it. Get picked up the award after because I didn't want to go in front of everyone because I knew it was going to ruin like weeks of my life. I was going to be tense and scared. This was closer to the incident.
If somebody
and then after that, the 2 drama shows and comedy shows I helped write. The first time they made me come on stage, and the second time they brought me up with everyone else as opposed to just myself, and they made sure to give me a bunch of alcohol beforehand. So,
what's your rule of thumb for like going on? Because I've thought about it recently. My history is basically doing it in elementary school, going to the gymnasium. I was so nervous, and then I took a public speaking class actually in university to make up like for something. But I've realized that like if I have to be told about something way ahead of time, then I get more nervous. But like if let's say I was at a concert and it's like, and then you're beside the musician and they call you up on stage, you're like, oh, this is so exciting, you don't have time to think about
I turned that down. Belle and Sebastian with Nas, and her and Sarah, different Sarah than probably the few that I've already mentioned.
Sarah is a common.
Shout out to all Sarahs. I think it's Sarah Atwee. She's hilarious. Nas's best friend. Messaged her not too long ago just to say hi.
So did you
they went up on stage
though. Like after like
no, that's what I'm struggling with.
Well, because to me it'd be like a never waking dream that like it'd be like.
So when I say things in the mornings like I didn't sleep very well or I don't feel well, usually means I had like nightmares all night. And I woke up feeling like coronavirus was my fault. Like, that was a common thing for the first 2 weeks where I'd wake up feeling guilty and responsible for this pandemic. Like, single-handedly, I did this. And, it's irrational, yes, but it's also...
Do you think it has anything to do with, like, Catholic guilt that people...
No, it's just my own...
or how
like it's within line of all the night terrors I used to have as a kid, where it's like the whole world's against me.
But what about?
I think I have mental health issues.
I know I might be reaching here, but like I don't know. I would think like when I was, I never thought when I was at Ottawa, even because they mentioned that it was like frequently unceded Algonquin territory and stuff like that. Did you ever feel like? You were intruding in any way because it's like Banff Indian Barrel.
No. That's not anything to do with it. It's all personal. It's self-loathing.
The way
manifests in certain ways.
Well,
like,
I just always because you always seem to be more aware than others on like being a white person at this time.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize your privilege, but I don't think that has anything to do with my personal night terrors and my own like psychological problems. Though Mom did mention that Uncle Bill and traced our lineage back to the first settlers here in Ontario, and I was like, oh, fuck. That just means that we were like an active participant in genocide.
Well, I don't know because like when I'm
makes
naturally
you have a
suspect
greater
of any of that because I went to I looked on Ancestry.com for us and it's like we founded the town of Milton, but like because Milton is in.
What did it used to be called?
No, it wasn't called anything before that.
But I'm just thinking like Kingston. Especially, it's where the St. Lawrence River meets Lake Ontario, so it would have been a major passageway, trade route. So there was like meaning it was, I would presume it would be extra brutal in that case because it would be an even more valuable piece of land.
It's really impossible for me to think about like, okay, well, what was like the land and geographical makeup of like the world's population and like how long ago that was. Like I don't know. Like because I only recently figured out that like, and I didn't put it together sooner, and it's but like 12 Years a Slave, Solomon Northup. Oh, maybe I'm bringing this up because Facebook AdSense or something mentioned like a rip off of that tale or something like that.
2 Years a Slave.
I didn't know that you could be like that. Well, like Solomon Northup was like a free man before he was like enslaved. That you could be in North America and at that time and of that
like he was like
race
a violin. He was like a concert,
player.
you know, violinist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're getting off track here.
From Lost World.
Yeah.
So that's my whole brain.
That
like
guy's in the two of the best scenes from that movie because the PG-13, like they have this scene where he gets
who is
the guy that you mentioned
from
with the beard
Death
and
Wish. Yeah.
So he gets like he's like the one good guy on the bad team that like Julianne Moore's character identifies with, and they trade paleontology stuff. And basically what happens is the T-Rex attacks camp, and then they people get stomped on and stuff, and then they separate in groups, and they go into a waterfall, and then the T-Rex's head comes through the waterfall, and then like that guy gets a poisonous snake that he had mentioned earlier, like down his shirt, and then he runs out. Like to try and get it off him, and then the T-Rex like drags him, and you see him like poke through the waterfall, and then he gets pulled out, and then he gets pulled up, and then you hear a crunch, and then the waterfall turns red, and the blood pours down.
That's dope.
That's
in Lost World.
Yeah, it's a very ingenious.
I had only saw like two blocks of airtime, like. There was 2 commercial breaks, and I left on the second one. It was just Jeff Goldblum seemed a lot more exasperated. His character, Dr. Malcolm, was just, I mean, sure, you know. But, I don't know.
He mentions making that movie was like hubris for him to see him if he could just top himself.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that if you look at his filmography, the biggest gap I think he's ever had between films.
Go down and throw a tarp over anything that says Operation Hennessy.
Operation Hennessy. Why does that sound?
It's from Life Aquatic.
I see. But it doesn't. I know Hennessy is like a beer, right? But what?
It's an alcohol, like Henny. Drink it, Henny.
But it's like a plant, right?
Hennessy? You should look it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know Hennessy, I believe, is like not a bourbon. What do you call it? Like some brandy. This is a brandy. I don't know that I've had Hennessy, but I have a friend named Keen Hennessy, and Tupac and Action Bronson rap about Henny all the time. Oh, you're talking. What was like when my hero? God, I'm trying to remember the Tupac lines. Tupac was amazing. Oh, I was talking to Dad. Here's a good question for you to leave off on.
Sure.
But Matt and I were talking about how it's funny to ask non-rap fans top 5 favorite rappers.
Oh yeah.
But just before I get to yours, just to give you some time to think. Because, like, not going to judge, just curious. Like,
yeah. I don't follow rap.
But that's great. That's why it's funny. Because I thought Dad was going to say, like, Eminem or, you know, like, even, like, Run DMC, because they played with, like, Aerosmith. He was like, well, the Beatles actually had some songs that were, like, rapping. And I was like, okay. And then you start talking about the Beatles and the difference between poetry, spoken word poetry, or just like, you know, like a different vocal styles. And then the 5th person he mentioned was Sting. So, Dad's list of top 5 favorite rappers: George Harrison, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and Sting. Top 5. I thought he was even going to say, like, maybe Debbie Harry for, like, Rapture by Blondie. But, nope. The Beatles and Sting are Dad's top 5 favorite rappers. I thought maybe Eminem might be on there because he watches the Grammys, and then that's his whole music opinion for the year, right?
I'm the only one who thought, like, because he actually performed at the Oscars.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but
because it was, I don't know why they decided to fit that into their
best musical
show.
Performance at the Oscars is Elliott Smith, who's scared of his mind. He's like if you or I were playing at the Oscars, but incredibly talented. Like he's the song Miss Misery from Good Will Hunting. and he did not want to perform. And it's with an orchestra. He is so scared. It would, like I was saying, it's like
Brian Wilson.
That poor Brian Wilson would
because I think
would kill it.
He looks terrified all the time every time he plays them.
I disagree because he's got like good.
No, you're talking about your friend Brian Wilson. I'm talking about Beach Boys.
Oh, I haven't seen him enough. I'm a Dennis Wilson guy myself, but he's the one who hung out with Charlie Manson, the only one who did surf and took acid. I shouldn't say took acid; they all did, but he was the.
My top five
but
by the way,
yeah. That's what I want to get
so
back
it's
to.
like number one is Eminem. Obviously.
You could say rap group because my number one's UGK, which is Pimp C and Bun B. Anyway, so your number one's Eminem.
I've listened to a lot of rap, but like it's like my whole musical taste. I don't even really.
Do you want me to tell you my five to give you an idea?
Sure.
So UGK, Underground Kings, specifically. I can't say specifically because every album's fucking sweet. I found them through Outkast, who will also be on this list. But UGK, Tupac, Run the Jewels. Is my personal one.
That seems to me like the Run the Jewels are going to become like the new popular rap group.
They're already pretty popular. Like, how many times have you heard nobody speak in the last year?
Way too many.
Yeah. Picture this. I'm a bag of dicks. Put me to your lips. Yeah. So good.
It was used in two
Silicon
comedies
Valley
back to back that were.
So I have those three. I'm just trying to remember. Oh, Wu-Tang Clan. Fuck. And number 5. Kanye, Bronson.
Oh, yeah, Kanye would be.
Kanye, Bronson, Q-Tip, or Mos Def all pretty much have to compete for that last spot.
Really, Mos Def getting out there.
Oh yeah, Mos Def is incredible.
Most definitely.
Oh boy, what's his new name? Is his
Yasmin Bey.
Thank you very much. That would have bothered me all day.
I hear he just goes by Mos now, doesn't he?
He's whatever, Black Star. He and Talib aren't doing that project anymore, but anywho,
I think now is probably
I'd probably have to say Kanye.
Rapping that ever was right now.
Yeah. And for music, this is the best time there's ever been.
I'd agree. I think the biggest problem is like the economics of like mainstream media doesn't really support how music should.
That's
be
why
listened
it
to
needs to. It's changing.
Like
I have a list
were
of
to
my.
Stuff as a kid, like you occasionally heard good stuff on the radio. Now you just can only hear the stuff that gets played a lot.
My favorite album so far this year.
Also,
just to give you some more time to think. Run the Jewels, Waxahachie, Phoebe Bridgers, Soccer Mommy, Childish Gambino, Hamilton Lighthouser.
I got 5.
Car Seat Headrest. And I cannot wait for Land of Talk. Which is funny. Yesterday I realized Land of Talk and Nation of Language. Same name, basically. 2 different bands.
Oh,
Nation of Language, Land of Talk.
That makes sense.
Land of Talk is amazing. They're top 5 bands in general. Deftones, Radiohead, Land of Talk, Mastodon, and The Cure. Yeah.
Oh, I had him, and then
and then rappers UGK, Tupac, Run the Jewels, Wu-Tang, and Kanye. So yours is Eminem.
So I have I gotta say, like, I don't like any enough that I've. Like,
I know that's why it's tough. Outkast is up there for me too.
Yeah.
Outkast.
It's difficult because like hip hop too bleeds over into it.
I can't that.
Like
that's what I mean. Favorite hip hop artist because
I'm a purist though. Like
that's like I mean I included Donald Glover and he's rap hip hop funk groove. That's good. So it's basically there's Don Glover.
He signed so many bills like that. So Eminem.
Buck 65 would be up there for me too.
Kanye. 3, it'd actually be. I haven't heard enough
Ice
from
Cube?
her yet. No, I don't like any of Ice Cube's stuff to be honest.
NWA
Ice Cube has actually made more.
Kendrick.
Ice Cube.
Couldn't forget about Kendrick.
I want to say even though I listened to all of Kendrick's discography, my favorite lyric of his I can't remember. I'm not gonna say it.
No, please.
Yeah.
What is
like,
it?
Please. No, it's like he just does one intro
Yeah.
to the Amazing Spider-Man 2 soundtrack.
Sweet.
And it's a song with him, Alicia Keys, Hans Zimmer.
Wow.
And I think...
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. And they're all like... And it's like a really expensive music video where like Hans Zimmer is dressed up as like full maestro. And it's like, it's like...
It's
super,
the Puff Daddy come with me
like
of that time.
Yeah. By the way,
except Jimmy Page sucks. Led Zeppelin.
I should do a video on all of the Spider-Man soundtracks.
John Paul Jones is cool.
But
yeah,
all
that'd be
the
cool.
Spider-Man soundtracks are good. They're very good.
I love that song when it came out. Like I was in elementary school.
What song is that?
Hero by Chad Kroeger.
Oh
and,
yeah. That's still a good
if I
song,
can remember,
I think.
the lead singer of Saliva, who looked like Dan from Deadwood, who's also in Sons of Anarchy.
So I guess Hero is like the defining song off Spider-Man 1, right? It's either that or the Sum 41 song. Rock is what we're all about. It's
I don't even remember.
For.
And the Hives had Main Offender, I think, on there.
That's the one downside to Disney owning them, even if they make maybe better crafted movies like that like thing.
The cookie cutter crap.
Well, it's like Netflix where everything passes through a small pipeline. So like I figured out just this week why Tom Hanks was upset, not just because of the theater, but
well, how's Tom Hanks, but why Tom Hanks?
And Gadget was talking about how well it will be better his movie Greyhound on Apple TV because that moves about 46 megabytes of information per second.
You told me about the
Blu-ray. Yeah, it does 100, so that like makes sense. But it's
Are you still just trying to buy time just before you inevitably say DMX, Busta Rhymes, Master P? Yeah. I got like. He's in prison.
I couldn't
unfortunately.
remember the name of Lizzo.
There was a song in Trill.
Lizzo is number 3.
That's a good answer. I like Nicki Minaj as well. And Rhapsody, I think should get a lot more attention for like a lady rapper.
Alicia Keys surprisingly number 4.
Gangsta Boo as well is really cool. But
Post Malone, I think, what was I going to say?
Oh, DMX is in prison. There was a string of like concerts in Banff of like, a lot of has-beens and one-hit wonders. And there was at a party when I don't know, someone suggested we try to get DMX to play in Banff.
Wow.
And there was like a preliminary legwork done. We spoke to the Banff Center. But no one bothered to look it up until like a day later, or until like a day or two later, what he was up to, and he's in prison.
Yeah. Is he still in prison? He must.
I don't know. I feel like it'd be like totally. He'd probably have a good life if he went to prison, because he is gangster. He's scary. I mean, I don't like the topic or the trope.
Did you hear about him getting into? Like, one of the reasons he got into prison, one of his charges is impersonating a police officer.
Would he drive into the airport?
Yeah.
Right? Like, he drove onto an airport hangar, like, where he wasn't authorized to go, because he didn't want to wait in line with everyone else or something like that.
At the height of his popularity.
So, just because...
Yeah.
But, like, 5 rappers. So, because I want to get this. Eminem, Gambino, Kanye.
And then I
Snoop?
did Lizzo, Alicia Keys.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Alicia Keys actually has an album. The one I haven't listened to her most newest one.
Erica
the one before that, I listened to it on Spotify back to front. I'm like, that's a good album. I think it's like Awake or something. And then finally, Post Malone. I said number 5.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It was raining.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
This was good. Sorry I didn't have more to say about Lost World and told you about my
One day we'll do like
my own personal Lost World.
Demand it. Yeah. Well, I was trying to work in like a metaphor into that, but I'm not clever enough.
Just like my...
I was lost in my own world.
My brain is like... I compare it to like a haunted house that's on fire.
Yeah. Anyway.
I really have to use water.
Yeah, got it. See ya.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. Bye.